Bible Study Ministry. We are going to be continuing on with our chapter studies, and today we'll be taking a reading in Daniel chapter 5. You can get your Bible and follow along with us, or you can just read directly from the screen. We'll be providing the scriptures from the King James version of the Bible. So let's begin at verse 1. It says, Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring golden and silver vessels, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. This is very simple. The king, one of the kings that took over after Nebuchadnezzar, the Bible calls him his son. History has a little different interpretation of who he actually was, just maybe a son in the lineage of the kingship. But Belshazzar threw this nice big party and invited his wives, concubines, and his princes, and a lot of so-called dignitaries of his kingdom. And while he was in this party, he decided to have everybody bring out the golden vessels in which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from Jerusalem when he sieged Jerusalem some years ago, some years prior. So that was one of the problems. You're going to use God's utensils. But the next problem was that he started to praise gods of gold, silver, brass, iron, wood, and stone. So this is where he's taken the turn for the worse, and more so is that he knew better, which we're going to find out later in this chapter. Verse 5 says, in the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hands and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. So all of a sudden, within that same hour, they brought out the vessels. All he saw was a hand, and matter of fact, just the fingers of the hand holding a pen, or not even a pen. It said that just the fingers of the hand, and it went over to the plaster of the wall, and the king saw the hand. Verse 6, then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loose, and his knees smote one against another. So now, they were drinking wine. So sometimes when you drink wine, you get a little, what they call tipsy or straight drunk, so that you're not aware of everything going around you, or everything going around you is going in a much slower fashion. But that all changed once he saw these fingers. His countenance changed. In other words, we call that sobering up. And he became so scared that his knees started to knock against one another. And all I can think of is, in the old days, I used to watch Scooby-Doo, and when he and Shaggy got really scared, you see their knees knocking against each other. It was always funny to me, but I understand being scared. Verse 7, the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. So he was so scared that he already gave up the kingship. He said, whoever can read this for me, it's going to be the next king. Then came all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was the king Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. So now he was, of course, very scared and sad about none of his astrologers or wise men being able to read the writing for him, and he was troubled, and his countenance went from relaxed and happy to sober it up, scared, and now to fearful and sad. So and everybody around him was astonished at this changed events of what took place. Verse 10 says, now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came in to the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. On around you is going in much slower fashion. So the queen came in and noticed everybody was nice and somber, and so she wanted to add some help. She wanted to give the kingdom help. Verse 11 says, there is a man in thy kingdom in whom the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar, thy father, the king, I say, thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. So she's taking him back in the history books, or taking him back in his mind, saying, look, you know we have somebody that can read this writing, because we have one guy in your kingdom who had the understanding, wisdom, and the light, like the holy gods. So who is she referring to? For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding and interpretation of dreams and showing of hard senses and dissolving of doubt were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. So she was very confident that Daniel could do what Daniel can do, what she said he can do, because Daniel had a proven track record working with the kings throughout the ages, especially bringing them what God wanted them to know. Verse 13, then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, art thou that Daniel, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. You see all the wonderful things found in Daniel, because Daniel feared God. Daniel kept the ways of God. So Daniel was able to communicate well with God. And that's what we still have the power to do today. But he was of the captivity of Judah. This was a Jewish, what they would call him, a Jewish man. And he was brought forth to help the Gentile Belshazzar understand what was about to happen to him. Verse 15 says, and now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And you cannot bring wise men in to help someone if the message comes from God. They won't be able to do it. Just like they try to bring false ministers to help interpret scriptures. They cannot do it. It has to be someone who has the Spirit of God upon them. Verse 16, and I've heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubt. And if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom. Daniel just got his invitation to be the third ruler. Verse 17, then Daniel answered and said before the king, thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known unto him the interpretation. Daniel refuses the gifts and the offering, even the invitation to be the third ruler over the entire Gentile dynasty. A Jewish man, a Jew, a man from the family of Judah. Turns it down, but he understands his job as one of the lowest priests. He has to deliver the message of God to the sons of Adam. So verse 18 continues, it says, O thou king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would he slew, and whom he would he kept alive, and whom he would he set up. and whom he would he put down. So Nebuchadnezzar was given a lot of power. He was given the ability to do a lot of things. Anything he wanted to do, matter of fact, he had the power to do it over all people, all nations, and all languages. Verse 20. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. So who took his glory from him? God. When he started to become high-minded, prideful, vain glory, taking glory upon himself. 21. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. So Nebuchadnezzar was humbled by God. He took his humbling after 7 years, and once he humbled himself, God lifted him back up to his kingdom. But he had learned at that point that God rules in the kingdom of men. And I'm sure once he did that, we read it in the previous chapter, that he made proclamation that everybody served Daniel's God. So if Belshazzar is his son, he heard that declaration, and he heard Nebuchadnezzar's testimony. And so for him to go ahead and disrespect God by going and get his vessels and praise another God, that definitely rubbed God the wrong way. 22. And now his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all of this. He knew this. It's just like people today who know the truth and will not humble themselves to keep the truth. And then when drama or different circumstances fall upon them, they all of a sudden wonder why. 23. But has lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, thy wives and thy concubines, have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold and brass and iron and wood and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways, has thou not glorified. So Daniel gave him the recount of everything, and then Daniel let him know the reality is that you knew all of this stuff that happened. Why have you chosen not to give God the glory? Why have you chosen to do this folly to yourself? And the very God that holds your breath, you haven't lifted it up. 24. Then was the part of a hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God has numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Okay, so your kingdom, your rulership is over, pal. That's what Daniel pretty much came down to tell her. Your rulership in this kingdom is finished. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and are found wanting. We're weighing your knowledge. We're weighing your works. We're weighing your faith. And you are lacking. You are very shallow. Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. This ends the Babylonian kingdom. The Medes and the Persians are officially coming into rule now. And they're going to do it almost immediately of this reading. 29. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold on about his neck, and made the proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. So Daniel was ruling for a little second. He was the big guy in charge. But verse 30 says, in that night Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, was slain. There was an attack, and they killed him, and that was it. 31. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So Darius from the Medes took the kingdom, and the ship keeps sailing. The Gentile rulership is continuing on. It's just gone from Babylon to the Medes. And the Medes are kind of co-ruling with the Persians. Eventually the Persians are going to rise up a little higher and take rule. But right now, Darius the Mede comes in and takes the rulership. And I believe that's Daniel chapter 5. I want to thank you for taking the time to study with us. Be sure to look into Bible studies we have on our website. And while you're at our website, we welcome you to join our newsletter, where we send our lessons and studies to first, and then we share it on our website. And sometimes we share some more intimate and private lessons that we do not want to share worldwide with our newsletter only. So it's very good to be on that newsletter, and we welcome you to that. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got some videos there that we think you'll find very interesting. History, different things that are coming up in society. And we also have books that are certainly worthy reads for Christians trying to beef up their scriptural study knowledge. And we have the 7 lies all Christians believe, even the good ones. That goes into 7 different subjects that most Christians believe in a certain fashion, but we show scripture to show that it is a misconception. And even the honest, good Christians who attend church every day, they are also tripped up sometimes on these 7 great misconceptions. And we also have a new Kindle book. It's only for Kindle download, and it's titled "Is Jesus the Unknown God?" We find people really get a lot from these, and we're sure you will too. So we want to once again thank you. Please tell people about this website if they're interested in studying the Bible, and you can use some of the social media buttons you find on the website. And that concludes this video. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.